Good morning, everyone. Laziness is not who you are. It is not your identity. It's a habit, a response, a pattern you've built over time. And if you built it, that means you can break it. But first, you need to understand it. Most people think laziness is about a lack of discipline or a lack of motivation. That's not true. Laziness is rarely about not wanting to do something. It's almost always about fear of failure, fear of discomfort, fear of not being good enough. Fear that the effort you put in won't be worth it. So instead of facing those fears, you tell yourself you'll do it later. You justify inaction. You convince yourself that resting, procrastinating, or waiting for the right time is the smart choice. But deep down, you know the truth. Laziness is not rest. Laziness is escape. We don't procrastinate on things that excite us. We don't delay things that bring us joy. Laziness is selective. It appears when there's discomfort, when something requires effort, when there's a chance of struggle. But here's the hard truth. Every meaningful thing in life requires effort. Every goal worth achieving, every skill worth learning, every dream worth chasing, it all demands work. And you have two choices. Face the discomfort now or regret it later. The worst part about laziness isn't just that it slows you down. It's that it lies to you. It tells you that you have more time than you do. It convinces you that tomorrow is just as good as today. It makes you believe that effort is optional. But time doesn't wait for motivation to show up. The world keeps moving whether you act or not. And every day you delay, someone else is out there doing the work. Someone else is showing up, pushing through, and making progress. While you're waiting for the perfect moment, they're building momentum. And let's be clear, laziness doesn't always look like doing nothing. Sometimes it looks like doing everything except the thing that actually matters. It's cleaning your house instead of working on your business. It's scrolling through your phone instead of going to the gym. It's staying busy but never making progress. You tell yourself you're productive, but deep down, you know you're avoiding the real work. So how do you kill laziness? You stop waiting to feel ready. You stop hoping for motivation. You stop giving yourself an easy way out. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. You don't wait to be inspired to start. You start, and then inspiration follows. You don't wait to feel confident before you take action. You take action, and confidence is built along the way. Laziness dies when you take control of your habits, when you stop negotiating with yourself, when you decide that what you want is more important than the temporary comfort of doing nothing. And when you kill your laziness, you don't just get more done, you become the person you were meant to be. Laziness is not a personality trait. It is not an unchangeable part of who you are. It is a habit, a behavior that has developed over time. And just like any habit, it can be broken. The problem is that too many people convince themselves that laziness is part of their identity. They say things like, I'm just not a motivated person, or I've always been lazy. No one comes into this world with an inability to take action. Laziness is something learned, something reinforced, something that takes root when repeated over and over again. And if it can be learned, then it can be unlearned. Think about any habit you have, good or bad, whether it's brushing your teeth every morning, drinking coffee, scrolling through social media, or exercising regularly. These are all habits formed by repetition. When you do something often enough, your brain starts expecting it. It becomes automatic. It becomes normal. And the same is true for laziness. If you've spent years avoiding effort, delaying tasks, or making excuses, then that pattern becomes ingrained, not because it's who you are, but because it's what you've repeatedly done. People get stuck in laziness because they believe that taking action is about feeling motivated. They think they need to wake up inspired, full of energy, ready to tackle the day. But that's not how it works. The truth is, motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Some days you wake up ready to conquer the world, and other days you don't even want to get out of bed. If you rely on motivation, you will always be inconsistent. That's why discipline is more important than motivation. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like doing it. It's showing up, taking action, and pushing forward regardless of your mood. And the more you practice discipline, the less power laziness has over you. Laziness often feels comfortable in the moment, but over time, it creates discomfort. When you put things off, when you avoid responsibilities, when you let tasks pile up, the weight of inaction starts to grow. You feel stressed, you feel guilty, you feel overwhelmed, and yet, instead of taking action, you escape. You distract yourself with entertainment, social media, or meaningless tasks, all to avoid the one thing you actually need to do. But deep down, you know the truth. The more you avoid, the worse it gets. The more you delay, the harder it becomes, and the cycle continues. Breaking laziness starts with a shift in mindset. Instead of thinking about how hard something will be, think about how much worse it will feel if you keep putting it off. Instead of waiting to feel motivated, start before you're ready. Instead of overwhelming yourself with the big picture, just focus on taking the first small step. Because once you start, momentum takes over. Action creates motivation. The more you do, the easier it gets. And before you know it, laziness is no longer in control. You are. Laziness is not just about a lack of willpower or discipline. It is often rooted in something much deeper. Fear. Most people don't realize it, but laziness is not the cause of inaction. It is the symptom. The real cause is fear. Fear of failure, fear of discomfort, fear of not being good enough, fear of starting something and realizing you are not as capable as you thought. When something feels overwhelming, when success is not guaranteed, when the path ahead is uncertain, the easiest way to cope is to do nothing at all. It is safer to avoid trying than to risk trying and failing. This is why so many people procrastinate on things that matter most to them. It is not because they are lazy. It is because they are afraid. Think about the tasks you put off. It is rarely the simple things like watching a new show or eating your favorite food. Laziness does not show up when things are enjoyable. It shows up when there is a challenge, when effort is required, when there is a chance of failure. The brain looks for an easy way out, and laziness provides it. Instead of working on that project, you scroll through your phone. Instead of going to the gym, you convince yourself you will start tomorrow. Instead of making a tough decision, you wait, hoping the right answer will just appear. In the moment, these choices feel small, harmless, but over time they become a pattern, and that pattern shapes who you are. Fear-based laziness is tricky because it hides behind excuses. You tell yourself you are too tired, too busy, or not in the right mindset. You convince yourself that waiting until you feel ready is the smart choice. But the truth is, you will never feel completely ready. You will never have the perfect amount of energy, the ideal circumstances, or total confidence before you start something difficult. Readiness is a myth. The only way to overcome fear is to act despite it. The more you hesitate, the stronger the fear becomes. The more you delay, the more intimidating the task feels. The only way out is through action. One of the biggest fears that fuels laziness is the fear of failure. No one wants to put in effort only to fall short. No one enjoys making mistakes or feeling inadequate, but avoiding action to prevent failure is a guaranteed way to fail by default. You might not make mistakes, but you also will not improve. You might not experience setbacks, but you also will not achieve anything meaningful. Every person who has ever been great at something started as a beginner. Every expert was once someone who didn't know what they were doing. The difference is that they did it anyway. They took action despite the fear. They pushed forward even when they were uncertain. They understood that progress is impossible without movement. Another fear that drives laziness is the fear of discomfort. Hard work is uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. Pushing beyond your limits requires effort, and effort can be exhausting. But discomfort is not the enemy. Stagnation is. Every time you choose comfort over progress, you reinforce the idea that you cannot handle struggle. But you can. You have faced challenges before. You have pushed through difficulties. You have proven to yourself that you are capable. The problem is not that you are weak. It is that your mind has convinced you that avoiding discomfort is the best option. It is not. Discomfort is where growth happens. Laziness is not something you fix overnight. It is something you unlearn one step at a time. The next time you feel the urge to put something off, ask yourself why. What are you avoiding? What fear is holding you back? What discomfort are you trying to escape? Recognizing the root cause of your laziness is the first step in overcoming it. Because once you understand that laziness is not about effort, but about fear, you can stop fighting the symptom and start addressing the cause. And once you do that, laziness loses its power over you. Waiting for motivation is one of the biggest traps people fall into. They believe that in order to take action, they need to feel inspired, energized, and ready. They think motivation is the spark that leads to productivity, the force that will finally push them to do what they have been putting off. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Some days it is there, pushing you forward, making everything feel easier. Other days it is nowhere to be found, leaving you stuck, frustrated, and waiting for something that may never come. If you rely on motivation, you will always struggle with inconsistency because you are allowing your feelings to dictate your actions instead of your commitment. Think about the people who achieve great things, whether in business, sports, art, or any other field. Do you think they feel motivated every single day? Do you think they wake up each morning with endless energy and excitement? Of course not. They have days when they don't feel like showing up, days when they would rather stay in bed, days when they doubt themselves. But the difference is that they do it anyway. They don't wait for motivation, they take action first, and the motivation follows. This is the key that most people miss. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. When you start doing something, even when you don't feel like it, your brain starts to engage, you get into the flow of the work, you begin to see progress, and that progress fuels your motivation. It is like pushing a heavy object. It is hardest at the beginning, but once it starts moving, it builds momentum and becomes easier to keep going. But if you never start, you never get that momentum. You stay stuck in a cycle of waiting, hoping, and making excuses. One of the biggest problems with relying on motivation is that it allows room for negotiation. You start bargaining with yourself. You tell yourself you will do it later, that you don't feel ready right now, that tomorrow will be better. But the truth is, tomorrow will be just like today unless you take action. The more you give yourself permission to delay, the easier it becomes to keep delaying. And before you know it, days, weeks, or even months have passed, and you are still in the same place, wondering why nothing has changed. Discipline is what separates those who achieve their goals from those who don't. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like doing it. It is removing the choice, eliminating the option to quit, and committing to the process regardless of how you feel in the moment. When you stop giving yourself an easy way out, you start developing the mindset of someone who takes control of their actions instead of being controlled by their emotions. The good news is that discipline is not something you are born with. It is something you build. And you build it the same way you build any other habit, through repetition. Every time you take action when you don't feel like it, you strengthen your ability to push through resistance. Every time you show up, despite the lack of motivation, you make it easier to do it again the next time. Eventually, taking action becomes your default, and you no longer need to rely on motivation to get things done. One of the best ways to stop waiting for motivation is to create a system that removes the need for it. If you make decisions in advance, if you structure your day in a way that minimizes distractions, if you commit to non-negotiable habits, you won't have to rely on feeling inspired. For example, if you decide that you are going to work out every morning at 7 a.m., regardless of how you feel, you eliminate the decision-making process. It becomes automatic. The more you build these systems, the less power motivation has over you. The reality is there will always be days when you don't feel like doing the work, but those are the days that matter most. Those are the days when you prove to yourself that you are in control, that you are not ruled by laziness, that you can take action even when it is uncomfortable. And the more you prove that to yourself, the more unstoppable you become. Laziness often disguises itself as busyness. It does not always look like sitting on the couch doing nothing. Sometimes it looks like filling your time with unimportant tasks, staying occupied but never making real progress. It is easy to mistake activity for productivity, but they are not the same. You can be busy all day and still accomplish nothing meaningful. You can cross off dozens of small tasks from your to-do list, but never get closer to your biggest goals. This is one of the most deceptive forms of laziness, because it makes you feel like you are working hard when in reality you are avoiding the work that truly matters. The The reason this happens is simple. The most important tasks are usually the hardest. They require focus, effort, and sometimes even emotional discomfort. They might involve risk, uncertainty, or fear of failure. So instead of tackling them head on, your brain looks for an easier way out. You clean your desk, answer emails, organize files, scroll through social media, all things that feel productive, but do not move you forward in any significant way. This is the illusion of progress. You feel busy, but you are not actually making a difference in your life, your career, or your goals. This kind of avoidance is common because it is comfortable. Small tasks are easy to complete. They give you a quick sense of accomplishment without requiring much effort. Checking your email feels like work. Responding to messages feels like work. But deep down, you know what the real work is. You know what actually needs to be done. It is the task you keep putting off, the project you keep avoiding, the challenge that seems too big to take on. That is where the real progress happens. That is what separates those who achieve great things from those who stay stuck in a cycle of endless busyness. One way to break this cycle is to become brutally honest with yourself. Look at how you spend your time. Are you truly being productive, or are you just keeping yourself occupied? Are you focusing on tasks that matter, or are you filling your day with distractions? The hardest part is admitting to yourself when you are avoiding real work. It is uncomfortable to face, but it is necessary if you want to change. Once you recognize the pattern, you can start to break it. Another way to stop confusing busyness with productivity is to prioritize ruthlessly. Not everything on your to-do list deserves your attention. Not every task is equally important. A simple way to separate what matters from what does not is to ask yourself one question. If I could only get one thing done today, what would have the biggest impact? Whatever your answer is, that is where your focus should be. Everything else is secondary. If you start your day by tackling the most important task first, you will always be making real progress, no matter what else happens. Discipline plays a big role in this. It is not enough to recognize that you are avoiding important work. You have to force yourself to take action. When you catch yourself spending too much time on small, easy tasks, stop and redirect your focus. Do not let yourself fall into the trap of endless preparation or unnecessary organization. The best way to get something done is to start. Action leads to progress, and progress builds momentum. The more you push yourself to do meaningful work, the less tempting it becomes to waste time on tasks that do not matter. Another key to avoiding fake productivity is setting boundaries. Distractions are everywhere, and if you are not intentional about protecting your time, you will always find yourself getting pulled into low-value tasks. Checking emails, responding to messages, and handling minor requests from others can eat up your entire day if you let them. Instead of reacting to everything as it comes, set specific times for handling these tasks. Do not let them take over the time you need for deep, focused work. One of the most powerful things you can do to fight this type of laziness is to track your time. Most people do not realize how much time they waste until they see it laid out in front of them. Take a few days to write down exactly how you spend your time, hour by hour. You might be surprised at how much of your day is spent on things that do not actually matter. Once you see the problem clearly, it becomes much easier to fix. The difference between people who achieve their goals and those who do not is not talent, luck, or intelligence. It is the ability to focus on what truly matters. It is the discipline to avoid distractions, to say no to meaningless tasks, and to put effort into the things that make a real difference. It is easy to be busy. It is hard to be productive. But the people who understand this, who stop mistaking movement for progress, are the ones who ultimately succeed. Discipline and consistency are the ultimate weapons against laziness. Most people believe that success is about talent, intelligence, or even luck, but the truth is, the people who achieve their goals are simply the ones who show up every day and do the work. They do not rely on bursts of motivation or inspiration. They do not wait for the perfect time. They understand that progress is built on small, consistent actions taken every single day, even when they do not feel like it. Laziness, on the other hand, thrives on inconsistency. It grows stronger every time you give in to the temptation to delay, every time you make an excuse, every time you decide that today is not the right day to start. The problem is that most people negotiate with themselves. They set goals, make plans, and decide what they want to achieve, but when the time comes to take action, they start looking for a way out. They tell themselves they will start tomorrow, that they are too tired, that they will do it when they feel more ready. The moment you allow these thoughts to take over, laziness wins. You might think skipping one workout, postponing one task, or taking one day off will not make a difference, but it does. Because every time you choose inaction over action, you reinforce the habit of avoiding effort. Every time you break a commitment to yourself, you make it easier to break it again in the future. Discipline is built by eliminating the option to quit. When you commit to doing something, remove the possibility of backing out. Stop giving yourself a choice. If you decide to exercise every morning, do not waste time debating whether you feel like it. Just do it. If you commit to working on a project, do not allow yourself to get distracted. Just start. The more you practice acting without hesitation, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, taking action becomes your default, and laziness no longer has control over you. Consistency is the second half of the equation. One productive day will not change your life. One disciplined moment will not transform you, but repeated, consistent action over time will. The biggest mistake people make is expecting instant results. They put in effort for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, and when they do not see dramatic changes, they give up. This is why so many people start diets, workouts, or personal development plans only to quit before they see real progress. They expect immediate rewards, and when those rewards do not come fast enough, they lose motivation. But success is not about short-term effort. It is about long-term consistency. Think about a sculptor working on a block of stone. The first few strikes of the hammer do not seem to make much of a difference. The stone looks the same, but the sculptor keeps going, chipping away little by little. Over time, the shape begins to emerge. The details start to form. What once looked like a simple rock becomes a masterpiece. This is how progress works in real life. The small, seemingly insignificant actions you take every day are shaping your future, even if you do not see it yet. Every workout strengthens your body, even if you cannot see the change immediately. Every book you read expands your mind, even if you do not feel smarter overnight. Every step you take toward your goals builds momentum, even if it feels slow. One of the best ways to develop consistency is to make your habits non-negotiable. Remove the decision-making process from your routine. If you set a goal to write every day, do it at the same time, in the same place, no matter what. If you decide to wake up early, do not hit snooze. Get out of bed the moment your alarm goes off. The less you have to think about whether or not to do something, the easier it becomes to stay consistent. Another powerful strategy is tracking your progress. What gets measured gets managed. If you are trying to build a habit, keep track of how many days in a row you stick to it. Seeing your progress visually can be incredibly motivating. It creates a sense of accountability and makes you less likely to break the streak. Even on days when you do not feel like putting in the effort, the desire to keep the streak alive can be enough to push you forward. Laziness thrives in a lack of structure. If you wake up without a plan, it is easy to let the day slip away. If you do not schedule your priorities, distractions will take over. The more structured your day is, the less room there is for laziness to creep in. Set specific times for your most important tasks. Create routines that set you up for success. Make it as easy as possible to do what needs to be done, and as difficult as possible to give in to distraction. Most importantly, remember that discipline and consistency are not about perfection. You will have days when you slip up, when you fall short, when you do not follow through as well as you wanted to. That is normal. The key is to not let one bad day turn into a bad week, and one bad week turn into a bad month. The moment you catch yourself slipping, get back on track. Do not dwell on failures. Do not beat yourself. Just keep moving forward. Because in the end, the people who succeed are not the ones who never fail. They are the ones who never quit.